The title of this video tutorial is About the Assembly Module. If you have not watched the two separate videos on assembly creation, please do so first. We feel that watching these first will help you better understand this video tutorial. The most common method for creating assemblies is our Filter and Select Assembly Creation method and should be viewed first. The title of that video is Filter and Select Assembly Creation Method. The second method, Find and Flag Assembly Creation method, differs greatly from our Filter and Select Assembly Creation method. Please refer to the video tutorial titled Find and Flag Assembly Creation Method for a detailed explanation of its functionality. The first thing I'd like to bring to your attention in this assembly overview is our toolbar at the top of the screen. There is a separate video tutorial that covers all aspects of this toolbar. That video tutorial is titled About Our Toolbar and can be found in the general grouping of these video tutorials on our support website or on our YouTube channel titled WardrobeTools Software and Services. Therefore, we will briefly mention the functionality detailed in the specific tutorial and concentrate on the tabs specific to this assembly module. The toolbar's first primary tab is the same on all our toolbars. The tabs that follow the primary tab can vary greatly from application to application, module to module, and screen to screen. Housed within these secondary tabs are predefined buttons that perform functions that you generally need access to on a day-to-day basis. Generally speaking, there will always be a navigation tab, a Find Functions tab, and occasionally a Miscellaneous Functions tab for specific functions of that module. The following tabs are specific to this assembly module. On the tab titled Duplicate this assembly function, we have placed a clickable button titled Click here to duplicate this assembly, which does exactly what it says. The next tab is titled Find and Flag Assembly Creation Method. On this tab, we have placed a button titled Step 2, Click here to add pieces using the Find and Flag method. After creating a new assembly and assigning its primary piece, click this button to initiate the process of adding the remaining pieces to the new assembly. Please watch the video titled Find and Flag Assembly Creation Method for a complete description of what happens when you add your assembly pieces using this method. I mentioned these separate tutorials for a second time because of their importance. Watching these videos first will give you a greater understanding because they contain elements of functionality that are common in all our wardrobe application modules. Immediately below the toolbar is the screen's tab object. It will generally have a number of tabs and an occasional sub-tab object within a given tab. Tabs help to categorize and organize various features and processes of each module in an order of their importance. Let's start by reviewing the tab titled About, found on the far left of the tab object. Here you find a sub-tab object with multiple sub-tabs. The purpose of this tab and its sub-tabs is to provide you with a quick and easy method to review information that is globally true to all our WardrobeTools applications and modules. Please refer to the separate video tutorial titled The About tab for detailed explanations of its sub-tabs. Next is the tab titled Create Edit. Here you find a sub-tab object with two sub-tabs. The sub-tab titled Create Edit Assembly is where you will create or edit an assembly and declare its primary piece. The sub-tab titled Add Edit Assembly Pieces is where you add or edit the additional pieces that make up the complete assembly. There is a video tutorial titled Filter and Select Method of Assembly Creation, which is specific to this subject. Next is the tab titled Detail. This tab is divided into two quadrants. The first I'll mention is the left quadrant. The top section of this quadrant is home to the calculated display name of the assembly as well as its thumbnail graphic. Directly below are the assembly's primary descriptor fields. Although it would seem that these fields duplicate some of the fields of the primary item, they don't. This assembly-specific fields are all auto-filled with the values from the primary piece to quickly give identification to the newly created assembly. For some users, these values will be sufficient to identify and describe the assembly. Other users will need greater control in describing the assembly separately from the descriptors of the primary piece. The values within these assembly-specific fields can be changed without worry, as you are not changing the values of the primary item. They simply give you further flexibility in describing the assembly separately from its primary piece. This is especially beneficial to theatrical costumers. The quadrant on the right is the display area for the assembly pieces associated with the current assembly. Notice that the name area of the primary piece within this display will always be colored pink. To the left of the thumbnail of each assembly piece, you will find the following: a white button with a small blue arrow within. When clicked on, it will produce a dialog window asking if you want to view the item clicked on or all of the assembly's pieces. The button with the red circle and diagonal red line unassigns the piece from the assembly. To the far right within the display quadrant, you will see a button with a curled blue arrow. Clicking on this button will replace the assembly's current primary piece with the item corresponding to the button clicked on. Next, we'll select the tab titled More Detail. Each subtab of its subtab object houses additional descriptor fields categorically organized for easy viewing and editing. The first subtab is titled Additional Fields and Rental and Loaner Info. Here we have provided additional detail fields as well as fields for documenting assemblies involved in rentals and loans for those who need the ability to track such. These fields are not available within our Wardrobe Planner application. Next is the subtab Secondary Colors. When you need to add secondary colors for an assembly, this is your one-stop shop. Check as many colors as appropriate. Next is the subtab titled Additional Descriptions. When your assembly needs further descriptions, this is where you would select the values. Check as many of these descriptors as appropriate. Next is the tab titled View Large Displays. Again, here you find a subtab object with multiple subtabs. These subtabs are intended for display purposes only and are just multiple ways to view an assembly's pieces. The subtab titled View Up to 6 Pieces is limited to the display of 6 pieces of the assembly. Clicking on any of the images will initiate a pop-up window displaying a larger view of the item clicked on. The subtab titled Large Primary Image with Pieces Thumbnail provides the largest graphic display of the primary piece of the assembly. Clicking on any assembly piece within the right quadrant will produce a dialog window asking if you want to view the item clicked on or all of the assembly's pieces. The subtab titled Large Images of Assembly Pieces provides scrollable graphic displays of all pieces within the assembly. Clicking on any assembly piece within either quadrant will produce the same results as mentioned on the previous subtab. The subtab titled Larger Images of Assembly Pieces provides the largest scrollable display of the pieces within an assembly. Again, clicking on any assembly piece within either quadrant will produce the same results as the previous subtab. The subtab titled Large Views of Additional Images provides large displays of all additional images associated with this assembly. Clicking on any additional item photo will produce a dialog window asking if you want to view the item clicked on or all of the assembly's additional images. Again, these are just multiple ways to view an assembly's pieces, and thus it is a personal preference as to which large display subtab works best for you. The next tab is titled Compare. The sub-tab, Compare Assemblies, allows you to select and display up to 3 assemblies for comparison. At the top left of each Compare quadrant, you will see 2 fields. The first is titled, Use this to select any assembly. The second is titled, Use this to select an assembly by the default person assigned. To select an assembly, go to any one of the 3 assembly quadrants and enter the appropriate field to select and display the desired assembly. Once you have selected an assembly, you will notice that all associated pieces are displayed. Repeat the steps described above to select the second and third assembly to compare. To the left of each piece displayed is a white button with a blue arrow. Clicking on it will display a pop-up window giving detailed information about the piece. Next is the sub-tab titled Compare Items to Assembly's Primary Piece. The left and right quadrants of this sub-tab uses our Filter and Select method for selecting items. The top of the center quadrant displays the current assembly's primary piece, as well as any selected item from the left or right quadrant. Click on any filtered record to display its image for comparison. The intent of this sub-tab is simple. Compare items to items. It has the potential of displaying and thus comparing 3 items at once. Next is the sub-tab Compare Item to a Material. Though similar to the previous sub-tabs, there are some inherent differences. On the left quadrant of this sub-tab, you will find the Filter and Select method for selecting items, which allows you to select any piece from the current assembly. On the right quadrant of this sub-tab, you will find the Filter and Select method for selecting materials. The top of the center quadrant displays the selected piece from the current assembly, as well as the selected material from the right quadrant. The sub-tab titled Compare a Material to Assembly Pieces allows you to display the selected material from the previous sub-tab within the context of the assembly's pieces. The 2 sub-tabs Compare Item to Materials and Compare Assembly to Materials are not a part of our Wardrobe Planner application. They only appear in our Wardrobe Assistant and Wardrobe Manager applications. Obviously, these 2 tabs are intended for seamstresses, theatrical staff, or similar. Being that you can store prop items in the Items database and store prop materials in the Materials database, you can use these 2 tabs for the purpose of matching props materials to props within an assembly. For theatrical professionals, assembly could actually be a theatrical set, where the assembly pieces are the pieces that comprise the set. The possibilities are infinite and limited only to your needs and imagination. As a side note, you can do similar type comparisons with materials in the Item Inventory module. Let's select the next tab titled Wear Dates. This tab displays the primary item and associated pieces of the current assembly, along with all wear dates that you have documented for this particular assembly. Suffice it to say that the Calendar Wear Dates section is intended to document either special events or everyday wears, business-related or otherwise. You cannot associate an individual item directly to a wear date. Only assemblies can be associated to wear dates. You must go to the Calendar Wear Dates module in order to create a wear date and associate an assembly. This will then associate all pieces of that assembly to that date automatically. The Calendar Wear Dates module does not reflect the dates worn during a performance within the Theatrical Production module in Wardrobe Manager. There is a separate display for those dates within that application. The Wear Date tab is divided into 4 quadrants. The top left-hand quadrant displays information as well as the picture of the assembly's primary piece. The bottom left-hand quadrant is where you can create a wear date for the currently viewed assembly. You do this by selecting the date and clicking on the large green plus icon. The top right quadrant displays the assembly's pieces. Clicking on the thumbnail of any assembly piece within the quadrant will produce a dialog window asking if you want to view the item clicked on or all pieces of the assembly. The bottom right quadrant displays the assembly's wear dates. Clicking on the button to the far right of any wear date will take you to a detail screen where you can view or edit the wear date in its entirety. Clicking on the button on the far left of any wear date within the quadrant will delete the wear date. We have created a specific video tutorial titled Calendar and Wear Dates of the Assembly Module to help you better understand this topic. The next tab is titled Add to List. If you are using our Wardrobe Manager application, the tab is titled Add to List or Shows. The quadrant on the far right titled Add Assembly Pieces to a List is provided to give the user the ability to add an entire assembly to a laundry, charity, consignment, or travel list without having to enter each piece individually. The add process is based on selecting the list ID of the list you want to add the assembly to. You must create the list ahead of time so it is selectable. You can remove any item added to a list when necessary. For example, the assembly may have 7 pieces associated with it and you want to add the assembly to a cleaning list. However, one of the items is a necklace and another is a set of earrings. Obviously, those 2 items would not need to be taken to the cleaners. In this case, add the assembly to the list and then simply remove the pieces that are not appropriate. You can add as many items to the list as you want using any combination of methods. However, in this particular view, you can only see 7 pieces of the assembly. At the top center of the screen, you will see a statement telling you how many pieces make up the assembly. If the assembly has more than 7 pieces, you can go to the tab titled View Large Displays to see all the pieces. As an aside, know that in printouts, all pieces will display. If you are using our Wardrobe Manager application, not only can you add assemblies to lists, you can also add assemblies to theatrical productions. The next tab is titled Notes. Again, here you find a subtab object with multiple subtabs. The first subtab is titled Notes for Internal Use. This tab contains one note field where you can type an unlimited amount of text. This field is intended for general internal notes about this assembly. It could be about general thoughts, ideas, maintenance, history, rental instructions, or anything else you may choose to enter. Also contained on this tab is the assembly's calculated display name, as well as a picture of each assembly piece. The next subtab is titled Notes for Client. Again, this subtab contains one note field where you can type unlimited amount of text within the field. This note field is intended to provide your client with information about this assembly. Examples of how to use this field could include how the pieces fit together, how to pack or maintain the assembly, or suggest item substitutions. This note will print within each assembly's PDF or paper printouts, as well as a photo of each piece. Also contained on this tab is the assembly calculated display name, as well as a picture of each assembly piece. The subtab titled Additional Notes About Assembly is where you can create an infinite amount of line item notes for the assembly. Each note can be given a type, priority, status, association to a person, category, subcategory, and more. When you really need to organize your notes in an orderly fashion, this is a tab that you will want to use. These notes do not print on your client's printout, either on paper or PDF. You can, however, print these in a report-style printout, paper or PDF, and then supply them to your client. However, no assembly photos accompany these notes. Next is the subtab titled Notes About Primary Piece from Inventory Module. This tab contains the general note fields from the Inventory Item module regarding the primary piece for this assembly. Changing any values here will change the values in the inventory item database for this item's record. On the top toolbar, immediately to the right of the Search Form button, is an area designated to display the words Has Notes. Has Notes will appear when any of the note fields have data. This is intended to notify you that there are notes about the assembly. You can click on Has Notes and you will be taken to the Notes tab. The next tab is titled Additional Images. Its first subtab is titled Insert Alternate Image. For those wishing to substitute an alternative photo for the assembly's primary display, here is where you can do the following. Insert the image of your choice, or select the preference setting to display the alternate image rather than the primary piece's image. Here is how the preference switches logic works. If neither of the fields have a value, the primary item image is displayed. That is the default. If the global pref field value equals alternate, the alternate image will always be displayed. If the global pref field equals primary, then the primary image will always be displayed. These are true except when the global field value has either value selected and the record by record pref field has a value for a given record. Then the record by record value overrides the global setting for that particular assembly's record only. The alternate image could be a composite image of the entire assembly, meaning all assembly pieces within one image. Next is the subtab titled Add Additional Images. Here you can add as many additional images to support this assembly as necessary. Examples may be to document side, back, or overhead views. Another example may be to include live performance or event shots of the assembly. The next subtab is titled Add, Edit, View, Additional Image Detail. Here is where you can enter more detail about each additional image. Clicking on the white button with the blue arrow will offer you the choice of viewing all the additional images for this item in larger views, or just the image corresponding to the button you clicked on. When you select Clicked On, you will be presented with a pop-up window which displays a larger view of that image, as well as some additional fields for adding more detail about that image. Next is the subtab titled Set the Size of Your Image Here. This is where you will set the default size for the additional images. You can change the default size at any time. Changing the default size will not have an effect on any additional images that you have already entered. The next tab is titled Task. Its first subtab is titled Create Task. This subtab gives you the ability to create tasks and have them automatically associated to the assembly. The subtab titled Task Not Completed displays all tasks not completed, but tasks can also be created here. The subtab titled Task Completed is a display of all completed tasks associated with this assembly. The subtab titled All Tasks displays all associated tasks to this assembly, and tasks can be created here as well. The next to last tab titled Print Center is for just that, printing reports about assemblies. The concept of the Print Center is to provide a centralized print location for each module, thus making it easy to find relevant reporting. Modules, where the sheer quantity of reports makes the forms confusing, will have a category subtab within the Print Center for ease of use. With rare exception, all selectable reports will be found within the Print Center. However, occasionally, we will place a Print Me Now button on forms where you often need to print the current record's information. The Print Center subtab is broken into two main quadrants. The right quadrant displays the assembly and the assembly items of the current assembly record. The quadrant on the left provides all the clickable buttons that allow you to report on the current assembly or a group of assemblies. These buttons can print to paper or generate PDFs. PDFs are great for email attachments or transfers to a mobile device depending on your needs. The last tab is titled Help. The subtab titled Text Help is where you will find all help topics related to the module with clickable buttons that pop up the help text for that topic. The subtab titled Video Help is where you will find all help video tutorials related to the module. Each has a clickable button that will open your default internet browser and play the associated video, located on our YouTube channel titled WardrobeTools Software and Services. The next subtab is titled Audit Log. An audit log, by definition, is the documentation of changes to something. In our case, the audit log documents changes made to values on a record-by-record basis, by whom, within a database. What we have provided here is a very basic system to do just that. However, it requires manual data entry about each change. An automated audit log system is currently under development. It will be made available in upcoming versions of our applications when completed. Now, let's return to the Assembly Details tab. I want to point out a few miscellaneous functions that I've yet to talk about. First off, I'd like you to be aware of the Clear These Filters button. When clicked on, it clears the filter fields of criteria values. Wherever we use the filter and select method, you will find a button to clear the criteria values from the filter fields. On our toolbar, you will find the Return button. When you click on this button and you have values within any of the filter fields, you will be asked if you want to clear those values prior to the return. Again, this function works the same in all modules where you have the filter and select functionality. We understand that we have not provided complete detail about the two methods for creating assemblies. This video was intended solely as a tutorial for a general overview of the assembly module. This concludes this video tutorial. We hope that you found it informative.